Good morning. Welcome to this morning's Dharma School service. And happy Earth Day. Hopefully all of you are well. And thank you again for joining us this morning. We'll begin with the reading of Sambujo and Juseige. So if you please join us. Once again, good morning. If you'll please join now in the reading of the Golden Chain. The Golden Chain. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, and again, happy Earth Day. Today we are especially mindful of our relationship to the world around us. Hopefully, it's not just on Earth Day that we think about this thing, and I'm sure many of you are well aware of what's going on with the environment around us. You know, in Buddhism, we understand that we are deeply connected with the world around us, and that how we behave affects not just ourselves, but with everything around us is affected by what we do. We know that our environment is changing rapidly. We're seeing great, large changes in the world around us. Past few years, we've been hearing about these major fires that have become more, the numbers have increased these past few years. We used to be where just a certain time in the year we need to be careful about fires, but now it seems to be taking place throughout the year that these major fires are burning. And a lot, people feel that it is a result of climate change, that our environment is getting drier, is getting hotter, and so these major firestorms now are increasing and becoming more a regular part of our lives. Buddhism reminds us that everything is changing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that these changes occur that will benefit us. But we also think that changes that occur in our lives certainly can benefit us, but can also cause great harm. And one of these things that we have become well aware of is that as climate changes, these fires are increasing intensity and frequency. The rainfall, we enjoyed a couple of days of some really nice rain, but that rain is really not enough to kind of turn back the drought that we've been in for more than 10 years. Every year it seems to be getting worse and worse, that the drought, the water supply seems to be getting less and less, and we rely more heavily on groundwater, and we're depleting that groundwater as well. The rain that does come, because we've changed our environment so much in our cities and there's hard surfaces that when it rains, it simply just washes down off of these pavements and sidewalks into the gutters and then out to the ocean. Whereas previously, when rainfall came, it would fall on fields and the ground would absorb that rainfall and would trickle down into the aquifer below and replenish that water deep underground. We don't do that anymore, and with more infrequent storms, the water simply comes very quickly. It washes down these dry hillsides or these pavements and roads into the streams and into our sewers and gets washed out to the ocean. And so we are starting to realize that there are things that we can do to help our environment or help our relationship. Maybe it's a broken relationship with our environment, but there are things that we can do. There are cities that are starting to look at not just green spaces, but to start to think about how we might be able to better conserve the water that we use, but also how we might be able to collect the water that would normally run down our streets and our sidewalks and hard surfaces into gutters and out to streets. So these green spaces are being planted as a part of our infrastructure in cities. There are a lot of ways that we can be involved, that we can help to improve our circumstances, help to improve our relationship with the world around us. There is I thought it was interesting anyway, a legal, I guess it's a lawsuit that began in 2015, and this is the Juliana versus U.S. And who are our chat people, hopefully you'll be able to put this into our chat. But the website is Our Children's Trust. That's one word, .org. So ourchildrenstrust.org. When this suit took place, it was this group of 21 young people and a couple of organizations that, as plaintiffs, made claims against our government that their future, these are young people, I think all of them were certainly under 20, but I think most of them were under 15, maybe 15 or 16 years old. And they claimed that their future was being denied because of the policies that our government had adopted, and that their welfare was being threatened by the government's actions. And it would seem like it would be an easy thing to do, but it has gone on now for 7 years, and it's kind of sitting in limbo. Initially, it seemed to make its way through the courts very quickly, but then challenges to the plaintiffs' claims have been made, and states that are heavily dependent on things like coal and petroleum, on oil, have filed not counter suits, but have become intervened in this claims by the plaintiffs. And so it has gone back again, gone back and forth through these past 7 years. But if you go to that ourchildrenstrust.org, there's a timeline that outlines how this suit has gone through the years. But there are different ways that we can be involved. Certainly this challenge to the practices of our government and the contribution of those practices to pollution and to the degradation of the environment certainly is something to be aware of and to kind of be engaged in. But there are things that we can all do, whether it's in this to support this suit or to support organizations that are in our communities that are working toward bettering our environment and our practices, to encourage our government officials to pass legislation that would help our environment, that can reduce the amount of damage that we're causing as human beings, that we're causing to our environment. And whether we're engaged in on a local scale or on a national or international scale, there are things that we can, every one of us can do. I enjoyed barbecue, so you know that for many years I would regularly barbecue, and but we've kind of cut back on barbecue. One, because while you're burning wood and burning charcoal, you're contributing to pollution in the environment. But also, when you look at the way that meat is produced, right? Produced is a kind of a weird way to think of this animal that has been raised so that we will be able to eat this meat from this animal. When you consider the production of meat, not just here around the world, that it is one of the major contributors to pollution, to the degradation of the environment. So one of the things that we can do is maybe not have so many hamburgers or cut back on the amount of meat that we eat, and that might help. It'll contribute to reducing the amount of methane, the amount of carbon dioxide that gets into our air. It reduces the runoff that is a part of the production of the cattle, feedlots, and there's so many things that contribute to the degradation of our environment in the production of meat. There are other simple things that we can do. We can cut back on, eat more vegetables rather than eating meat, eat vegetables. And as I say this, I'm thinking, I got to do more of that as well. I have to be mindful of that and not eat as much meat as I have been in the past. But there are other things that we can do. How do we let the water run when we, when we are maybe washing dishes? Do we simply let it run, or do we put in, fill the sink, turn off the water, and then use that water that's in the sink? And then, as we're rinsing, only to use the water then. How might we be better able to use the water that we have in a way that can conserve that water? And we might think of new ways of using water that will be more environmentally friendly. Another simple thing that we can do is turn off the light when you're not in the room. When you leave a room, turn off the light. The use of electricity is also, as we convert to more environmentally friendly production of electricity, electricity is still something that contributes to, in its production, contributes to environment degradation. The use of fossil fuels in the production of electricity still contributes, but it's, in a way, it's better than gas, because as you burn gas, you're also contributing not just at the where the source of your heat, but also where that gas comes from. All along that line, there is production of carbon that enters the environment. So these are simple things that we can do. Turn off the light, use less water, eat less meat, and that we as individuals can do, and that can contribute to hopefully making our environment a place that will be better for all of us as we face an uncertain future regarding our environment. We can, sometimes it feels like it's so big that there's nothing that we can do, but we can do our part. It may seem like a little, but if all of us do a little bit more, then we can perhaps help with reducing the amount of carbon that gets into the air, reduce the amount of injury that we cause to our environment. Today, on this Earth Day, there is such a huge problem that we all face, but we can all be a part of the solution, work toward improving our environment, that we can turn things around. Although it sounds real scary, the ice caps are melting, we're finding these sinkholes underneath Antarctica. The Siberian tundra is melting and releasing trapped carbon that had been there for hundreds of thousands of years. There are all kinds of things that are taking place, and so we need to kind of take the steps, make the effort to see if we can change this around. And I think if all of us does a little bit, all of those little bits that we do will together will make a difference. So turn off your lights when you're not in the room, when you leave a room. Turn the water off when you're not using it. And maybe eat less meat. Both for my health and for the environment. I'll try to eat less meat. But we can certainly, in Buddhism, understand that our relationship with the world around us is dependent on how we understand the world around us and how we recognize our relationship to that world. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. If you please join in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Thank you very much. Have a good Earth Day, and hopefully, the ideas that you learn in school and in your classes, be able to apply them. And take a look at that, our childrenstrust.org. You may get some other ideas to help turn this around so that we can all enjoy a better environment in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.
Softly blew the breezes on the glorious morn. In Lumbini's garden, where the Lord was born. From the earth's
See you next time. Oh, next week, I forgot. Next week is Nikkei Matsuri. So the next time we'll have service will be the week following, which is May the 1st, when we come back to services here at the Betsuin. So next week, Nikkei Matsuri, there are no services, office will be closed. So come and enjoy the festival. Again, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's service. Happy Earth Day. We'll begin this morning's service with the reading of Sambujo, followed by Junirai. So if you please join in the reading of Junirai. If you would please join now in the reading of the three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. And once again, good morning and welcome to this morning's service. Today is Earth Day. It is a day that we are especially mindful of our relationship to the world around us, to the environment that we live in, and to the people who inhabit this planet. We are increasingly aware of the changing environment around us. Things are becoming more intense. We're beginning to experience things that were forecast, 30, 40 years ago, that we continued in the way that we have been. They were saying 40 years ago that we would start to experience these kinds of changes in our environment. So it's not something new, but certainly it's something that we need to act on with increasing action that will hopefully reduce the amount of impact the negative impact that we have on our environment. And in Buddhism, the two things that always I think about when we think about the environment is that everything is interdependent, everything changes. These two very basic Buddhist ideas, the interdependency that we share with the world around us. Our actions have effect on the world around us. We are not separate from the environment, although we do try to do things that will keep us safe, keep us supplied with the things that we need and that we feel we need and that we need to have in order to survive. But we are integrated with the environment. We are not separate. We are. This is one planet that we inhabit, and we are certainly a part of that planet, and that our actions will affect the world around us. As we think about today's Earth Day, we are well aware of the many changes that are taking place in the world around us relating to our environment. And Buddhism reminds us that everything is in a process of change. And when we think of change, we may think of it in terms of something that we like or something that we don't like, whether negative or positive. But change itself is really very It's simply that, everything in a constant process of change. We may like some changes that are taking place, and we may not like some changes that are taking place, but change occurs. It simply is a condition of our reality, our world in which we live. But we can sometimes need to be mindful, and we can manage the changes that are taking place. If we ignore what is taking place around us, if we don't acknowledge the relationship that we share with the world around us, that our actions have results in the world around us, we may behave in a way that can have negative consequences for ourselves and for others. So these two ideas of change and interdependency, although I'm not sure if that was what was intended by these two ideas of interdependency and change, but certainly it is a way of seeing what is taking place in our environment, our relationship to that environment, and the changes that have been taking place over the past 150 years. We have, the past 40 years, people have been telling us if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to have some real problems, and we're starting to see how those difficulties, those problems that result from our behavior are growing and intensifying. That we're seeing these changes, rapid changes now that are taking place, the seasons of that we used to think about as being regular, recurring times of seasons, times of the years are starting to change. And the summers are getting hotter, and that heat is being spread out now throughout the year. It's not just in the summer when it's hot. We're seeing temperatures rise in other times of the year. We're also seeing the result of that temperature rise. We're seeing the change in the weather, not just in terms of heat, but in terms of the storms and also the fires that are taking place, not just here in California, but now throughout the world. We're seeing these intense fires that have begun to occur on a regular basis. It seems like everything is being turned upside down. We need to protect ourselves, but more than protecting ourselves, we can begin to change our behavior so that what is occurring can be slowed down and hopefully turned around. There are a lot of different ways, and that we can act, that we can behave. That can have an effect in the way that the environment has been changing. Some of the things that we might not think about, but because they're not occurring in our community, we see all of these fires, we see these storms, we see the lack of rainfall, but our oceans have been affected by the amount of carbon in the air. We don't really think about that, but the oceans are this tremendous reservoir that tries to stabilize our environment, our atmosphere. So heat is being absorbed by the ocean. If you think about, when you get something that's hot, a cup of coffee or a pot of water that you want it to cool down, you leave it out on a counter maybe, or you just kind of put it aside for a while, and eventually that pot or that cup of coffee will start to cool down. In that case, it's releasing heat into the atmosphere. It's kind of trying to normalize, equilibrium between the atmosphere and that container of that hot water. In the case of our ocean, it's also trying to reach a point of equilibrium, but it's absorbing heat. So it's cool. The ocean is cooler than the atmosphere, and so it's absorbing all of this energy, the heat that's in our atmosphere. And it's also absorbing the carbon that's in our atmosphere, the carbon dioxide that we've been producing for these many centuries, well, this past century certainly, that has been in our atmosphere, but now are being absorbed by our ocean. And we can see the effects of that through the acidification of the ocean and the effects that acidification has on ocean life, on coral, on mollusks that are a part of the ocean. We can see how their structures are being degraded by the increase in carbon in our oceans. The heat also that has increased in the ocean has caused bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef. Large sections of the Great Barrier Reef, one of the largest marine structures, has had these major bleaching events, and whether or not they will be able to return is still uncertain. Off our own coast, the kelp forests are disappearing. And the kelp forests seem like, see again, we don't see it, right? So we don't think about it. But as kelp forests disappear, it serves as a habitat for many of the animals that we're familiar with. Otters are certainly a part of the animals that live in that habitat. But these kelp forests are disappearing, in part because of the warming oceans, but also because of the purple urchins, sea urchins. If we could get uni from these purple urchins, it would be wonderful, but then people would be going out to harvest them. They're trying to figure out some commercial benefit that could be found from harvesting these purple urchins, but they sea urchins, but they simply are eating all of the kelp, and there is behind them left kind of a barren ocean floor. And what people are doing now are divers as well as the otters are helping out to kind of, and sun stars are also helping to reduce the number of purple urchins that are kind of clearing the land, the ground, the ocean floor of kelp that is such an essential part of the environment. But that's a very complex relationship, right? But then it's the warming of the ocean, the acidification of the ocean, the amount of carbon dioxide that we put into the air that's being absorbed by the ocean, that's having effect on the environment or the ecology of the ocean. So, interdependency, we can think of these things and as kind of abstract ideas, but we can see that the understanding of these relationships that we share with the world around us can have profound effect on the world, and how we are affected as well. So all of these kinds of things that are going on in the world, and I'm sure maybe our attention is drawn now towards the Ukraine and the war that's going on there. We are not maybe as focused as we should be on our environment as well. There are so many things going on. As we think about our response to these challenges that we have, how might we be able to reduce our behavior, the things that we do that can contribute to a reduction in the greenhouse gases that we release into the atmosphere. And as individuals, it might seem like it's kind of remote. What can I do to make a difference? I suggested in the Dharma School service that there are a couple of things that we could do. One is eat less meat, and this is one thing that I think I've talked about before. I used to barbecue a lot. I don't barbecue as much as I do now, although I did see a Safeway sale recently on tri-tip. Usually my meat enabler would send me this information about these sales that go on, and I did stop by and pick up a couple of tri-tip in a max pack. But some of it will be frozen and put away for some later date. But the production of meat contributes a tremendous amount of greenhouse gases. We kind of enjoy that. It was a way that we began to eat more meat or have meat become a part of our diet because it was something of a luxury. And so when we were able to include meat into our diet, it was something that was considered to be not just important to our diet, but it was something special to have. And as we became used to that, we consumed more and more in that. And that consumption contributes tremendously to the degradation of our environment. The production of meat has not just the animals that are slaughtered for that meat production, but the process of raising cattle, the effluent flow into our rivers and streams, into the groundwater, the reducing forested areas to turn into pasture. But what's interesting when we hear about the Amazon and the clearing of Amazon forests for the production of beef, what actually happens is after the cattle have been raised, for some time after the field has been used for the raising cattle, it becomes less useful, and that's why they continue to deforest or take down forests, because they need to expand that. And then the fields that are left behind are then converted into production of soy and those kinds of products. But that can be helpful, but still the deforestation for the production of beef can have tremendous negative impact on our environment, both in the deforestation and the production of meat through the waste, disposal of the waste, and just the raising of animals can have a tremendous negative impact on our environment. So eating less meat, eating more vegetables might be a good thing. Farming, how we farm is starting to change. We have these huge monocultural farms that produce tens of thousands of acres of corn or soybeans, just a monoculture, and that requires pesticides, it requires chemicals to bring nutrients into the ground to support these crops. What we're beginning to realize, and what was known by cultures before us, that as we rotated crops, we were able to return nutrients to the soil, and that as we return nutrients to the soil, and that when people started doing this, generations before our time, there were no chemicals that you could add to the soil, and yet they were able to be productive. They were able to sustain themselves by this understanding of the relationship with the world around us. So there are all of these kinds of areas that we can look at, that we can encourage our neighbors, our government, to and ourselves, our own behavior, to help with the in turning this around and changing the way that we're headed, and that the climate change that we are experiencing can be slowed, and hopefully we will be able to come to a point where we are again sustainable in our relationship to the world around us. One of the things that we're doing in the BCA, our endowment foundation, this maybe seems like a kind of a real tangent to Earth Day, but our endowment foundation has been, for the past several years, has been moving towards investments that support ESGs, so environmental, social governance, companies that hold these values. And in the beginning, when we used to talk about this, people would say, no, you invest in environmentally things, you're going to lose money. It's not profitable to be investing in that. You need to be investing in things that are profitable. And that certainly makes sense, but over time, people have realized how their business affects not the shareholders' bottom line. Certainly be concerned with the shareholders, but also to be concerned with stakeholders. So shareholders, stakeholders, they don't have to be against one another. Their interests do not have to conflict, but rather by including stakeholders as a part of the consideration of businesses, the people who are affected by the businesses, it helps to improve the relationship of a business to its environment. If you have a company in an area where the byproducts of your business affects the neighborhood, whether it's through the chemical releases that lingers in a neighborhood and eventually causes medical problems for the neighborhood. That's being not good neighbors, not being concerned with the stakeholders, the people who are in the environment or the place in which your business is conducted. And these concerns have been increasingly important for companies that try to be a positive force in their relationship with the people and the environment in which they find themselves. And the Endowment Foundation, the BCA's Endowment Foundation, has been shifting. It has worked with a very good partner that has helped, whose values also are shared by the BCA, that we need to be aware of, and we need to take action that will support practices that benefit the environment, society, and governance. It also more recently, also in diversity and inclusion. This is something else that has become important as investment groups are looking at companies to invest in. And the BCA has incorporated these ideas into its investment strategy. So this is something that you could do. If you have investments, you can ask whether or not these are values that the companies that you are invested in shares with you. Are they environmentally sound? Do they have environmental practices that are sound? Governance and societal practices that support the communities in which they do business. Certainly something that we can do as well here at the Betsuin. One of the things that we are doing here in the Betsuin as a part of our moving forward is our Dharma Center, our project that will begin, in maybe about 18 months we'll start to break ground, but we'll go through the fundraising portion of effort in the next few months. It's a big project. It's a 2-story building. It's going to have a lot of construction, a lot of space, a lot of things that will happen as we put this building up. But one of the things that the Betsuin has chosen to do, and consciously made this decision, that it wants to be, the Betsuin, we want to be a responsible, environmentally responsible, as we create this new place in a way that aligns with what we have as our core values here at the Betsuin. And so the decision was made to, as we build this new building, that we would use mass timber as the primary material for this building. Mass timber has recently begun to become more popular, has grown in the number of people and companies that are using mass timber. It's been around for quite a while, but it's only recently begun to become widespread, and it's as more people use this technology of mass timber, it's getting better. More people, as there are more demands, there are also improvements being made to this technology. And basically, mass timber is a couple of the things that make it so important in the environmental, in the questions of environmental impact, is that mass timber that is used in this, in the production of mass timber, and mass timber is basically laminated sections of wood that are put together, and then large slabs of this material is shaped as and put into, used as walls and ceilings and beams. That this timber, this material, can be produced locally. Not here in San Jose, certainly, but a lot of it is coming out of the Northwest. And there are other areas now that are beginning to use wood that is locally produced. And it doesn't have to be hardwood, but it can be fast-growing wood that can be harvested sustainably. And when mass timber is used as a building material, rather than producing carbon is sequestered into the wood that is used in this mass timber. So we think of trees as being one way of improving our environment, that wood, the tree absorbs all of this carbon, all of this, and stores it in its wood. And then as this is harvested, the carbon remains sequestered in that wood. Whereas if we used concrete, as we would normally have done, that concrete, in the production of that concrete, although the technology is changing recently, the production of concrete uses a tremendous amount of greenhouse gases that are used in its production, that is released into the air, and also used when the material is used in making buildings. So we avoid that, and through the use of mass timber, we use materials that are sourced locally, that is sustainable, renewable, and that carbon is sequestered in the material rather than creating carbon. We actually are helping to sequester carbon in this mass timber. There are a lot of benefits, I think, that people are starting to find about mass timber, but it is something that the Betsuin has chosen, deliberately decided that this is what we're going to do. We're going to try and be net zero in our new building. That means there are things like offsets that we will try to do, but in the construction material that we will use, it'll be hopefully something that we can say that we are helping to address the degradation of our environment, that we will contribute to actually hopefully improving our environment. There are many things that we can do. There's certainly a great many concerns that are being raised on this Earth Day. Hopefully it's not just one day that we think about these things. You can do simple things like don't use water, or use water in a way that conserves water. Don't just let it run while you're doing something else. Turn the light off when you leave a room. I was told that when I was very young. Turn the light off, okay. But now I'm starting to forget and to turn the light off when I leave a room, but to turn the light off, not just to conserve electricity, but to conserve also the impact, or to affect the impact of the production of electricity. We can all do our part in trying to turn this around, and we need to really work at doing this. It's going to take more than just individuals. It'll take policies that government and industries will need to change in order to seriously address these issues that continue to affect our environment. And as a world, we're not doing a very good job. We haven't really slowed down. We've slowed down a bit, but it's not enough. As a planet, we are still in considerable trouble. The change in our interdependency with the world around us, that change is one that turns the direction of climate change around, that we move back to a place in which we are able to sustain our lives and our relationship with the world around us. On this Earth Day, especially mindful of our behavior, of what we might be able to do. Eat less meat, turn off the light, turn off the water, and then lobby your government. Have people. There was I mentioned in the Dharma school, the 9:30 service, a group. It's what is it? Juliana versus the U.S. This was a suit that was filed in 2015. A group of young people, 21 young people and a couple of agents or organizations, filed suit in behalf of young people that the behavior of the U.S. government has denied their future, a future of free from a degraded environment, freed from the ability to live out their lives. So if you have a chance, I'll take a look. It's called Our Children's Trust.org, and I hope that there's somebody still in the chat that can include that as a part of the chat, our children's trust.org. It describes this process, this claim that has been placed against the U.S. government, that the government is responsible for assuring the future of these young people. And in their claims, that includes us as well. Different ways of getting involved, different ways of behaving that can hopefully change the direction that our planet is heading to. Thank you very much for joining us for this morning service. Thank you very much for being a part of this morning's Earth Day service here at the Betsuin. Just a reminder, next week, which is April the 24th, our offices are closed. There's no service on the 24th. It's Nikkei Matsuri weekend, so there'll be a lot of things going on. They've decided that this year they will have Nikkei Matsuri in person. And so normally on a Nikkei Matsuri weekend, the office is closed, no Dharma school, no services conducted on that weekend. So we'll come back together again on May the 1st, the first weekend of May, when we'll have regular services again here at the Betsuin. Thank you very much, everyone. Do we have a Gatha? Yes? Okay. So we'll see you next time.
Softly blew the breezes on the glorious morn. In Lumbini's garden, where the Lord was born. From the earth sprang flowers, virgin warblers sang, while through earth and heaven strains of music rang. Gods and men and angels, all for worship came. Glory to Lord Buddha, glory to his name.
Thank you again, everybody. See you in May. Stay safe.